Good morning. Good morning. Good to see you. Thank you so much for coming out today. We're looking forward to sharing with you for just a few minutes. Just a quick update. We had a team from Northridge that spent last week in Guatemala with Casas por Cristo, and we were able to build 2 homes for 2 families. It was a great experience. We were able to build a home for an older couple and also a home for a young family with 2 little girls, and a fantastic experience. I would love for each of you. I wish we could take all of you to be able to do this. We had 36 people that traveled with us to Guatemala. The building on the right is the facility that's just been built that Casas has been able to build. By the way, when I say they built it, they didn't borrow for it. This was all donated funds and paid for as it was built. And that is where we stayed in the evenings, and it'll hold 150 beds. And has a massive dining area and kitchen and warehouse areas, 3 stories on one side, and it's a beautiful. It's called the La Posada, and it's a great place to stay. Our very own Charlie Hayes and his company have placed a water treatment system that was paid for by donated funds through our church to make sure that the water is clean, and so no more E. coli when you accidentally brush your teeth with the water. So we had a great experience. Built 2 homes. Here's just a quick picture of one of the homes that was built for the young family with the 2 little girls. Incredible location. Just behind that, you'll see just a little fence area. The poverty on the other side of where that house is was far worse than the site where we actually built. There were probably 10 little girls and kids running in that back area back there, and they were in an even worse situation than we were in here on this site. But we were able to build that house, and then there's another home that we built. This is the second home that was built, and the team that built it for the couple, and great experience all the way around. Just thank you so much for your generosity, for the way that you give, and for the support to be able to do this. It's just no way for me to explain to you the impact, the generational impact that these houses have for these families, and you're making a big difference as you do this. We are able to present Jesus, and this is such a powerful tool if you want to get people's attention in the neighborhood to talk about Jesus, and so thank you for doing that. Our next trip is in October. We already sailed past the deadline for that, but we are still in desperate need of help in building that. So far, the ladies have showed up big for that trip. Out of 12 people, there's about 10 ladies that are going. They'll build it. I have no fear. But I'm going and would appreciate some other people bigger than me that would get on the roof. That would be nice. So if you're interested in all and you can last minute go ahead and jump in, please check in with us. All right, we're in Hebrews. Let's get to work. Hebrews chapter 11 is where we'll be, and we will continue our journey through this. We'll be talking about a guy named Joseph today. Really one word that comes to mind this morning that kind of summarizes this book of Hebrews. Have you ever had to wait? Have you ever had to wait? Is there anything worse than waiting? We hate waiting, but that's really what's happening here in Hebrews. You have Jewish people who believe that Jesus is the Messiah, and they are being challenged to make it all the way to the end. They're enduring the passing of time. They're waiting for God's promises to be fulfilled. They're wondering if the promises of God are even true. Jesus promised to return, that he would make everything right when he did. And meanwhile, they are living with limited sight, and the difficult things that they're facing is making it so that they may not endure. So we can feel that. We understand that feeling of waiting. The word that we use to kind of bridge the gap is the word faith. And I've been thinking all week how cheap we have made this word faith. It's such a cheap word. We print it on cheap T-shirts. You can't walk through Hobby Lobby without seeing it. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. But it's not a light word. It's a very heavy and expensive word. Faith is, the scripture tells us, the assurance of things hoped for, but they have yet to be delivered. We're confident that they will come, but we have not seen them yet. I mean, we know it's true. The resurrection of Jesus was the prototype for our own resurrection, but we haven't seen it. And so by faith, we hold to the conviction that it is true and we will see it. And the reality is, the only way you experience faith is if you test it. Do I have faith? I won't know until it's tested. Because faith is proven to be faith when we deal with the gaps. Are you following me? When we deal with the gaps between what we hoped for and what we actually got. In that in-between is where faith is proven. And so the writer of Hebrews has been reminding us of the story of God and that Jesus is supreme above all of it. And then he gets to chapter 11 and he's been walking us through their heroes of the faith. So you have this famous chapter and he's trying to get them to realize the faith of all those men and women were the same as it is for you. It wasn't something super special for them. It was hard to wait for them, just like it is for you. And so we come today to the text of Joseph. Now, this is Joseph of the Old Testament, not Joseph like Joseph and Mary. So put your mind in the prior. And the text that we look at is just one verse. It's Hebrews chapter 11, verse 22. Why don't we read that together? Would you read this with me? By faith, Joseph, as he was nearing the end of his life, mentioned the exodus of the Israelites and gave instructions concerning his bones. That's our text. So the story of Joseph, you may remember some of the details. Maybe it's been a while since you thought of it. He's one of 12 brothers. He is prone to being creative in his dreaming. He gets this dream one time that all of his brothers are going to be bowing down and worshiping him. And so he makes the mistake of telling his brothers about the dream that he had, that they will be bowing down and worshiping him. So you can imagine how that might go. And instead of just bullying him, by the way, some of you think that your siblings bully you. No, they don't. Let me show you what bullying actually looks like. It could be much worse. So basically, they take him, they strip him of his clothes, they throw him in a pit, and they sell him into slavery, and then take his clothes, dip them in animal blood, and fake his death to their father. That's bullying. So suck it up. He gets sold into slavery into Egypt, and in spite of the way that he's treated, God promotes him somehow to the servant position in the house of a guy named Potiphar. But there in Potiphar's house, he's falsely accused of sexual assault, and he gets thrown into a long prison sentence, and there he waits. While he's there, God gives him a series of prophetic dreams and the interpretation of those dreams. And over a long period of time, he winds up at the right hand of the most powerful man in the world, and Pharaoh delegates much of his decisions to Joseph as he rules over the entire empire of Egypt. While he is in that position, there is a famine in the land that drives his brothers back to Egypt because they were told that someone wise planned ahead and knew that the famine was coming. That was Joseph. And they prepared enough food so that people could come and they could find the resources that they need. And then, you know what happens? His brothers find themselves bowing at the feet of their brother, which was the fulfillment of the dream that made them mad in the first place. There are many more twists and turns of the story, but in the end, Joseph asks if they would bring his father to, is he still alive? Would you bring Jacob to see me? And they bring him. And so he gives them some land in a place called Goshen. He sets them up for success under his rule. And when Jacob dies, Jacob makes Joseph swear that he will hold to the covenant that God gave Abraham. You remember we've been talking about this for weeks now. God said to Abraham, I'm going to bless you so that through you all the world would be blessed. In other words, Jesus is going to be one of your descendants who is going to be the ransom that will be paid for many. So what's interesting is the writer of Hebrews focuses on the faith of Joseph, but not so much the life of Joseph. Isn't that what you would write about? Joseph is a great man of faith. Let me show you how he lived by faith. Instead, he focuses on the death of Joseph and his faith at his death. He focuses on his last words. I want you to look with me in Genesis chapter 50, verse 24. It says this, Joseph said to his brothers, I am about to die. God will certainly come to your aid and bring you up from this land where he swore to give to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So Joseph made the sons of Israel take an oath. Here's what Joseph said. When God comes to your aid, you are to carry my bones up from here. Joseph died at the age of 110. They embalmed him and placed him in a coffin in Egypt. Final last words. I had a long list in here of final last words from famous people, but for the sake of time, I took them out. So we can talk about them later if you want to. But sometimes when people get to that last breath, they tend to reach and say what matters the most to them. And this is what mattered most to Joseph. That you take my bones out of here to the land that God has promised. He has not seen the Exodus, but he knows it's coming. Everybody dies. Sorry, welcome to church. Sorry. I want you to ask yourself a question. Will this thing that I am giving so much energy to, this thing that is causing me so much stress, will it matter at all in 10 years' time? I'm just pausing so you can ask yourself that question. Will it matter at all in 10 years' time? Even more, will it matter in 100 years? I'm looking around the room and I'm pretty confident that in 100 years, none of us will still be here. Most of us will not be remembered. Even if you have great grandkids, they might know your name, but they'll probably not know much else about you. You think about your great grandparents, you may know their names, but you don't really know a lot about them, what they were like, what they were into. The truth is, all my greatest fears, all my greatest anxieties, my best accomplishments, and all of the stuff that I've accumulated will all be gone. So here's the next question I want you to ask. Again, it's a depressing Sunday to this point. How do I want to go out? How do I want to go out? Because we're all going to go out. Not for a long time, but when the time comes, how do I want to go out? Here's what Joseph did. Joseph left speaking of the promises of God. He said, listen, boys, there's going to be an exodus of God's people. I know you don't see it. We're under oppression in Egypt. You don't see it coming, but God promised it, so it's going to happen. And when it happens, I want you to come back here. I want you to get my bones, and I want you to take them home. He left speaking of the promises of God. So here's what I want us to do. In the last few minutes that we have, I want us to take, what can we learn from that? What can we learn from Joseph this morning that we can apply and be practical with, that'll help boost our faith and give us a confident faith in the gaps between what we hope for and what we're actually seeing? Here we go. 3 quick things. Number 1, by faith, Joseph lived and he died as a resident alien. What? That's why I said, as a resident alien. What does that mean? So traveling in Guatemala last week, it's really clear when you enter there. First of all, you have to fill out a declaration form saying, I'm not from here. And then you get there and it's pretty obvious you're not from here. When you walk around the street, there are people smile and wave at you because you look odd. You look odd. You just look different than everybody they normally see. Plus, Americans are walking around looking like Americans. We're wearing shorts. No, they just don't do that in South America. You wouldn't believe it, but even in the really hot countries like the Dominican Republic, they wear jeans all day long. 110-degree heat index, denim. It's amazing. Anyway, our white, ashy legs stand out in Guatemala. So you have this feeling, I'm not from here. I can be useful while I'm here, but I'm not from here. Joseph remembered the promises of God, and he gave instructions about his bones. Exodus 13 says this, so he led the people around toward the Red Sea. This wasn't Joseph, it was the other guy. Led them along the road of the wilderness, and the Israelites left the land of Egypt in battle formation. Moses, look what he does. Moses took the bones of Joseph with him because Joseph had made the Israelites swear a solemn oath saying, God will certainly come to your aid, and then you must take my bones with you from this place. These instructions that Joseph gave about his bones were passed down from generation to generation all the way down to Moses. When you're fleeing the country, you only take what's really, really important. So when something happens, some of you've got your gear already packed. You've got your go bag, you've got your Faraday bag, you've got your whatever ready to go, and you know you're going to, here's what's happened, and you talk to your family, okay, when it happens, here's what you do, this is our meeting place, you grab that and you get out of there. This is what happens. They're fleeing Egypt. And Moses said, get Joseph's bones. Pretty significant. Even Joshua, here's what it says, Joshua 24. Israel worshiped the Lord throughout Joshua's lifetime and during the lifetimes of the elders who outlived Joshua and who had experienced all the works that the Lord had done for Israel. Joseph's bones, which the Israelites had brought up from Egypt, were buried at Shechem in the parcel of land Jacob had purchased from the sons of Hamor, Shechem's father, for 100 pieces of silver, and it was an inheritance to Joseph's descendants. He is buried with his ancestors. It is a sign that he believed the promises of God. You might be thinking, well, that's great. Here's something I want you to think about, though. He could have been remembered in a much different way had he stayed in Egypt. The Egyptians are like the goat for building things to dead, important people. He could have had that. He could have been famous in Egypt when he died. People could have come from a long way off to look and see where Joseph, this is the monument for where Joseph was buried. But he wanted to be remembered as a part of Israel, not Egypt. Why? It meant, one, that he still believed the promises of God were true. And two, it showed that he valued the glory of God over fame of being a powerful Egyptian leader. Why would he do that? I know I'm all over the place, by the way, but these notes were written a week ago, and I'm hearing it with you as if it's the first time. So, Hebrews 11, verse 13. I want us to go back. Hebrews 11, 13. Let's kind of squeeze this together a little bit. Here's what he says. Now, these all died in faith, although they had not received the things that were promised. This is talking about all the heroes of the faith in 11, including Joseph. But they saw them from a distance They greeted them. They knew these things would come. They saw them from a distance. They greeted them and confessed that they were foreigners and temporary residents on the earth. Living as if this is our temporary home is the point I'm trying to make. We don't really want that. We want comfort. We want security. We don't want to be exiles. But that is not what faith is calling us to. Hebrews 11, verse 14. Now those who say such things make it clear that they are seeking a homeland. If they were thinking about where they came from, they would have the opportunity to return, but they now desire a better place. They desire a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a city for them. Why is God not ashamed to be called their God? Because they have been waiting all along for a better city that he was preparing for them. Joseph, by faith, preferred the tents of a nomadic people over the pyramids of Egypt. He longed for a heavenly country where he would get to be with God and nothing else compared to that. And so as he died, he put his hope in that. And because of that, God was not ashamed to be called his God. So read Joseph's story. Lots to be known about the story of Joseph. This is how he died. But it was also how he lived. It was also how he lived. He resisted the temptations of Egypt. How did he do that? Faith. Confidence in what he would see. And so he ignored all the other things. Joseph became very wealthy. What did he do with it? He fed the poor. Read his story. He figured out how to store up enough food to get poor people through the famine. You and I are called resident aliens. Scripture calls us this. Living well here, but not from here, and not planning to stay here. The question is, are we like Joseph? Are you currently resisting the temptations of our culture? Are we redeeming the blessings of God for the good of other people? Why are the blessings of God on you? I'm telling you, you have the blessings of God on you. I just stood in a place where that would be much harder to believe. It's so hard to look across that fence at little girls lining up on the fence. It's so hard for me to tell them, God loves you, he knows you're here, he cares about you. You've heard the word dirt poor. That's where it comes from. That's all they had. I'm standing there talking to these kids, and I would try to take their picture. I have pictures, but I try to take the picture, and every time you pull up your camera, kids in Guatemala squeal and run. They don't want you to do that. And so I would have to take a picture from a distance, so I did. And then I would zoom in on it, and then I'd go over there and hold it up over the fence. There was like a tarp, so they couldn't see me coming. And so I would duck down and then hold it up in the air like this. And then they would all start laughing over there and pointing at the girl whose picture I was able to snag. So then the bus driver was working with me as we were putting siding on the house, and he translated by his phone the question they were asking. The question was, do you want to adopt a little girl? And so I looked over at him and I went, no. 4 little girls. So they all, that was funny to them, you know. And then they go, what about her? And I'd go, okay. And then they would laugh at that, you know. And then what about him? And I looked out at this little boy and I went, no. And they would laugh about that and everything. And then they had translated, how old are you? So I told them through the bus driver. So then they all started going, Grandpa! Why is the blessing of God on you? Is it just to terminate with you? Is God blessing you just for you? It's not what the scripture tells us. He's blessing you for the flourishing of others. Knowing that no one will know me 100 years from now takes off all the pressure. It's very freeing. I can live for something greater than my own reputation. I can be bold. I can be radically generous. I can be humble. I can live as a resident alien for the good of others. So the question is, how are we doing at living as resident aliens? This is what Joseph did. 2 quick more points. I'll do them fast just in the minutes we got left. Second one was this. Here's how we can learn from Joseph. By faith, he believed in the goodness of the sovereignty of God. Sovereignty of God just means we don't control stuff. In the time between his father's death and his own death, Joseph says something really important. I want you to hear it. He says this in Genesis 50. When Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said to one another, "If Joseph is holding a grudge against us, he will certainly repay us for all the suffering we caused him." So they sent this message to Joseph. They said, "Before he died, your father gave us a command. Say this to Joseph: please forgive your brothers' transgressions and their sin, the suffering that they caused you. Therefore, please forgive the transgressions of the servants of God, of the God of your father." And Joseph wept when their message came to him. His brothers also came to him and bowed down before him. They said, "We are your slaves." But Joseph said to them, "Don't be afraid. Am I in the place of God? You planned evil against me. God planned it for good to bring about the present result and the survival of many people. Therefore, don't be afraid. I will take care of you and your children." And he comforted them and he spoke kindly to them. Here's the point. Knowing God controls things changes everything. Joseph forgives. He knows he's not in the place of God. So he doesn't get to hold judgment over someone. He doesn't step into the place of God over his brothers. It takes big belief in God and big belief in God's sovereignty to forgive other people. Why is that? It's because you have to believe that when you were sinned against, that God saw it and that he will make it right. Otherwise, it'll consume you. It'll dominate your story. It'll lead to bitterness. And bitterness and ongoing unforgiveness is essentially a way of saying to God, "I can't trust you." But Joseph forgives. And he knows God is working even when he's suffering. So he said in verse 20, "You planned evil against me. God planned it for good to bring about the present result, the survival of many people." And listen, no doubt that some people have evil intentions for you. I have no doubt about that. And I have no doubt that their actions against you will bring you pain and they will bring you hurt. But there is also no doubt that God can bring good out of brokenness. The last thing I want us to see in the life of Joseph here is by faith, Joseph believed that God gets the last word. God gets the last word. If you read the book of Genesis, the last word in Genesis is sad. Verse 26 is the last, chapter 50. It's a sad ending. It ends like this. Joseph died at the age of 110. They embalmed him and placed him in a coffin in Egypt. The last word in Genesis is the word Egypt. No hope of redemption. No hope of the promises given to Abraham. He dies in Egypt. But God was not done. Hebrews 11, verse 13 says, "These all died in faith, although they had not received the things that were promised. They saw them from a distance and greeted them, and confessed that they were foreigners and temporary residents on earth. And now those who say such things make it clear that they are seeking a homeland, and if they were thinking about where they came from, they would have had the opportunity to return. But they now desire a better place, a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has a city prepared for them. They didn't just long for Canaan, they were longing for heaven. And so, for you and I, there will be days when we have to wait. There will be days when we will have to suffer. But I want to remind you what Revelation 21 says. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. I also saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared like a bride adorned for her husband. And then I heard a loud voice from the throne. Look, God's dwelling is with humanity, and he will live with them, and they will be his peoples, and God himself will be with them and will be their God. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes. Death will be no more. Grief, crying, and pain will be no more, because the previous things have passed away. And then the one seated on the throne said, Look, I am making everything new. And for those of us that know this is not our home, we will settle for nothing less than that promise. Joseph died knowing that ultimately he was destined for another place. His faith is no different than yours. We are called to live believing the same thing. We are destined for another place. Egypt is the final word of Genesis, but Revelation ends with soon. That's how it ends, soon. Revelation 22, 21 and 22. He who testifies about these things says, Yes, I am coming soon. And in the meantime, the grace of the Lord Jesus be with everyone. That's how it ends. Jesus tells us, declare my resurrection to each other until the day I return. His death and resurrection, the prototype of our own resurrection. And the way that he leaves for us to do that is as often as we gather around the table and we take the bread and the cup. What we're doing right now in this moment is we are declaring to each other that we believe the promises of God are true. And just as he was raised from the dead, we will be too. This is not our home, but we are going to a one that is far better. And so I want to invite you in that frame of mind to come and take the bread and take the cup. And as we do it together, may God encourage us to keep our eyes on him until the day we see him face to face. I invite you to come.